Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into Key Time Sports. It's Key Time coming back to talk about college football conference championship weekend. And the first game that I am going to cover is the Mountain West Championship. Now, this is the first time ever that the Mountain has been relevant this late in the season. First, I'm going to start off with the UNLV Rebels. Now, we know that the UNLV Rebels are led by Hag Malik Williams at quarterback. Also, here's their top running back, their top wide receiver, their leader in tackles, and their leader in interceptions. Now, here's all of the players that have thrown a pass for the UNLV Rebels this season. And here is their rushing attack for the Rebels. Here is their receivers. Here is their kicker. They have a two kicker system because earlier in the season, their main kicker was injured. So here's their kickers, their two kicker system. Here is their defense. Now, everybody on this defense has what I like to call they contribute. Everybody on the UNLV Rebels defense has at least 25 tackles throughout this season. No matter how much time they play, they've always had tackle. They've always had tackles out there on the field, no matter who it is. And solo tackles as a defense, they have 702 solo tackles as a defense throughout this season. Now I'm going to get to the offensive side of the Rebels, UNLV Rebels. So UNLV Rebels, they average 39.2 points per game. Their third down efficiency on offense is 42%, which is not great. But when you have a dynamic offense that can get you 8 to 9 yards on first and second down, you're not going to be in too many third down situations. All throughout the season, the Rebels, they have only been in third down situations only 65 times. That means on first and second down, they average 8.5 or 9 yards on first or second down. That means that you're gaining first downs either on first down or on second down. So right now, the fourth down efficiency rate for the UNLV Rebels is 72%, which is one of the best in college football. Now, we know what we see from the UNLV Rebels. Now, let's turn our attention to the Boise State Broncos. Now, the Boise State Broncos, they have had a dynamic offense all season. They are 11-1. Currently, they have a chance at making the playoff. They have a chance at making the playoff. And now, when it comes to the Boise State Broncos, everybody is asking, well, are they for real? I am going to show you all. I'm going to show you all their throughout this season, and we are going to see if they are for real. Now, Maddox Mason, he is their starting quarterback. They've had a three quarterback system this year. Here is their leader in rushing, and he is also a Heisman front runner, Aston Genty. Aston Genty, he has averaged over 200 yards rushing in every game this season. Put this guy as the Heisman. I know it's between him and Travis Hunter, but we all know that Travis Hunter, mainly, he can do a clean sweep of every award in the Heisman. But I know that they want to keep it a competition level. But all in all, both of these guys are worthy of being the Heisman Trophy winner. So back to the Boise State Broncos. Their leader in receiving, Cameron Camper, excuse me. Their leader in tackles, Ty Benefield, and their leader in interceptions, Ty Benefield. So he is a two-headed monster when it comes to tackles and interceptions. So here is the Boise State Broncos three-quarterback system. Here is their rushing attack led by Aston Genty, like I said earlier. Here are their wide receivers for the Boise State Broncos. Here's their kicker. He has been accurate all season, has made 100% of his kicks. He hasn't missed at all. And here is their defense. Now, the defense is just about the same as the UNLV Rebels. Mainly everybody on this list has at least 25 solo tackles throughout the season. And as far as a defense, solo tackles, 688. Now, when it comes to, we already know that the Boise State defense is able to carry their own weight. Now, let's take a look at the Boise State Broncos offense. Now, the Boise State Broncos offense averaged 40.6 points per game. Third down efficiency is 49%, which is not great, but hey, it's average. It's average. Fourth down efficiency is 70%, which is one of the best in college football. Now, I've given y'all the UNLV Rebels defense. I've given you the Rebels offense. I've given you the Boise State Broncos offense and defense. Both offenses are pretty much the same. Both defenses are pretty much the same. And this is going to be a tight game. The Mount West Championship, it is going to be an entertaining game. And I think that this will come down to about the last 2 minutes in the fourth quarter, or who knows, this game might go into overtime if we are not careful. But who I have winning this game, I have the Boise State Broncos winning this game. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody has took a look at the updated college football playoff rankings. As it currently sits, the Boise State Broncos are 10. If they win this game and have a couple more other teams lose, they maybe have a spot. They maybe have a higher spot, but they got to win. They got to win the Mount West Championship first before they start thinking about anything else. Anything else. So I have the Boise State Broncos winning this game by a touchdown late in the fourth quarter. But I would not be surprised if the UNLV Rebels somehow pull this game out in an upset. But like I said, I am going for the Boise State Broncos. I think that the Boise State Broncos have a better offense. They obviously have a better running game. And the UNLV Rebels, they have a tough time trying to neutralize top running backs like Ashton Genty. So I got the Boise State Broncos. The next game I want to talk about is the American Athletic Championship. The American Athletic Championship game is going to be between the Tulane Green Wave and the Army Black Knights. Now, one thing about Tulane, the last few years they have been teaming up, and you can see when it comes to their offense, led by Darian Minshaw. They're also led by their top running back, Malachi Hudgens, their top wide receiver, Mario Williams, their top tackler, Tyler Grubbs, and he is also the leader in interceptions. Now, Tulane has had a 3-quarterback system this year. These are all of the guys who have thrown passes. Here is their rushing attack. Here is their wide receiving attack. Their wide receiving attack I saw their wide receiving attack take over games like it's nobody's business. That is why Tulane Green Wave is 10-2. Most of their games that they have won by at least 2 touchdowns or more. Here is the Tulane Green Wave 3 kicker system, because they've had a lot of injuries at kicker this season. So this is why they have a 3 kicker system. And here is their defense. Now, everybody who is on the defense, they have averaged at least 20 tackles throughout the season. As you look down this list, and I'm going to let everybody have a good look at this list, you see everybody has at least had at least 5 tackles. Now, the guys that are on the field for most of the game, you see where they have more tackles, but as a defensive lineup alone, they have 636 solo tackles as an entire defensive unit. So now let's look at the offensive statistics when it comes to the Tulane Green Wave, when it comes to the Green Wave. Now, Tulane has averaged 39.1 points per game. Third down efficiency is 52%. So it's a little bit above the college football average, 50%. Fourth down efficiency, 50%. They are pretty much average when it comes to third down and fourth down. But when it comes to their offense has basically averaged throughout the entirety of the season, their offense has averaged 6.5 to 7 yards per play. And I see them having the same type of momentum in this game by the Army Black Knights. Now, I'm going to shift over to the Army Black Knights, and let's see what the Army Black Knights have had at the fold. Now, Army Black Knights, one thing they had a bad loss to a Notre Dame team that completely eviscerated them. So that is the only blemish on their record this season. So now they are led by the Army Black Knights are led by Bryson Daly. He is their quarterback and top rusher. So one thing about him, he's able to run the ball and he is able to pass. Here is their leading wide receiver, Casey Reynolds, their leading tackler, Andon Thomas, and the person that leads them in the interception department, Jaden Mays. Now, what the Army Black Knights have, they have a 2-quarterback system, but their punter has thrown a pass this season, and also their running back also threw a halfback pass option this season. So that is why you see more players in their QB system than you see with the other teams that I have shown you all. Now, when it comes to, like I said, their running backs, Bryson Daly, he's their top running back. So here's their rushing attack for the Army Black Knights. Here is their wide receivers. Here's their wide receivers. Here is the Black Knights two-kicker system. So they experienced injuries at kicker this season. And here is the Army Black Knights defense. Now, everybody on this defense has averaged at least 5 tackles. It doesn't matter who is out there on the field and how much playing time that they have. But at the end of the day, if you stop the offense, it has to come with tackling. And one thing that the Army Black Knights defense has emphasized later on in the season, and especially after that Notre Dame debacle between the Fighting Irish, where they got blown out at half, but well, before the game was over, they were down 35-7, is they have emphasized tackling, because in that game with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they had a lot of missed tackles. If my memory serves me correctly, they had over 35 missed tackles in that game, and it could have been more. But as of right now, the the tackles, as far as solo tackles as a defensive lineup, they have 596 solo tackles as a defense. So I've shown y'all the Army Black Knights defense. Now the Army Black Knights offense, they have averaged 32.9 points per game. Third down efficiency is 50%, which is on the same line as Tulane Green Wave. Now, fourth down efficiency, Army is a little bit better at 75%. In this game, will this game be a shootout or will it be a defensive struggle? I think that this game will be a defensive shootout. And one thing I am going to say is that I'm taking Tulane in this game, because Army, I've noticed throughout the season, even though that they have had a debacle, that debacle versus Notre Dame, in the games that they have won, they've always played with a lead. And we see how they fare against competition when they are down consistently in a game, having to abandon the run game and throw their way back into a competitive fight. So I think that Tulane Green Wave, they are going to have a good game on the ground and a good game through the air. And the Army Black Knights are going to be standing on the sideline wondering how can they stop Tulane, as far as when it comes to getting off the field on a game on a quarter in, quarter out basis. So now that is I have Tulane Green Wave winning this game by, I'm going to say, a touchdown, because I think that this game is going to be close. This game is going to be close, but Tulane has the far better offense and they have the better defense when it comes to tackling. So I have the Tulane Green Wave winning this game by 7 points. The next game I am going to talk about is the Dr. Pepper Big 12 Championship. Now, the championship game in the Big 12 championship game will include Arizona State and Iowa State. Now, the Iowa State Cyclones, they have been a team that has really been playing under the radar this year. They really have. Now they are led by Rocco Betch, and they have a 2-quarterback system along with a running back and a wide receiver that has had a few pass plays called for them. Here is their leading running back, Carson Hansen, their leading wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, their leading tackler, Bo Freyer, and their leading player in interceptions, Jontez Williams. He's a DB. He has 4 interceptions on the season. So the Iowa State Cyclones, I've looked at them throughout the season, and I like what they are doing on offense, and I also like what they are doing on defense. Now, as far as the run game, they might need to depend on the run game more in the championship game. They might need to. So here's their rushing attack, the Cyclones' rushing attack. Here's the Cyclones' wide receiving attack. Here is their kicker. They only had one kicker this season. He has missed 2 kicks already this season. So hopefully that this game does not come down to a blocked or missed field goal. And here is the Cyclones defense. Now, the Cyclones defense, they have had really underperformed. They've had really underperforming like sequences throughout these games, but like I said, they are led by the offense. 682 solo tackles as a defensive lineup for the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, the Iowa State Cyclones offense, they average 31.7 points per game. Third down offensive efficiency is 41%. Fourth down offensive efficiency is 80%, which is the best, the total best in college football. We haven't seen any efficiency, fourth down efficiency percentage higher than what the Iowa State Cyclones have done. So now we know what the Iowa State Cyclones have as far as a defense and an offense. I'm going to show everybody now what type of offense and defense that the Arizona State Sun Devils have. So now we see, I'm still talking about the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship that is going to happen tomorrow. I'm going to say this at the end of the show. There are 2 championship games that are on tonight, and there are 4 championship games on tomorrow. So now back to the Arizona State Sun Devils. When we look at the Arizona State Sun Devils, they have defense. They have a decent quarterback at the helm, Sam Levitt. He's thrown for over 2,000 yards this season. And also Jeff Sims, he's also had a few plays. He's had a few instances where he's had to call plays. So when you look at this game, when it comes to their quarterbacks, they all 3 of them are not, they don't wow you as far as in the statistical category, but the Sun Devils have a right to be here. And one thing about their rushing attack, their rushing attack has had over 2,000 yards throughout the entirety of this season. I don't know what some people are grumbling about when it comes to the Sun Devils quarterback situation, but when you have a good rushing attack that over the season has put up over 2,000 yards, I'm not going to be throwing the ball. I'm going to be running that joker 75% of the time. And that's exactly what the Arizona Sun Devils have been doing throughout this season. So, which leads to my next topic, the Arizona Sun Devils rushing attack. Here are their wide receiving attack for the Sun Devils. Here's their 3 kicker system. They've dealt with injuries at kicker all season. So that's why you see 3 kickers in this statistical dashboard right here. And here is the defense for the Arizona State Sun Devils. Now, the last time the Arizona State Sun Devils was in a championship game was over 40 years ago. So I'm sorry, everybody. Not Iowa, but Arizona State Sun Devil fans. It's been a while since you've been relevant. So happy to have you back in the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game. Happy to have you all back. Defensively for the Sun Devils, they've had 750 solo tackles as a defensive lineup. Now let's shift over to their offensive statistics. Their offensive statistics is the same as the Iowa State Cyclones. Now, when it comes to the Sun Devils offense. Sun Devils offense, they have averaged 32 points per game. Their third down offensive efficiency is 47%, which is one of, I'm not gonna say the worst, but it's decent to average. It's decent to average. And fourth down efficiency is 51%. So they are average on fourth down and below average on third down. So what do we see and what can we take away from the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game? I can tell you one thing, that this is going to be a shootout. This is going to be a shootout, and one thing about it is I think whoever turns the ball over, as far as which offense turns the ball over most, that team is going to lose. So, who do I have winning this game? I have the Iowa State Cyclones winning this game, because when it comes to the Arizona State defense, I just don't have enough confidence in their defense, because they have been playing in shootouts all season for the Sun Devils. So, Sun Devils, one thing, you've had a good season, but more than likely, I think that you will lose this championship game, and you can forget about going to the college football playoff, because right now you are ranked number 15. So you're not going to have a chance at making the college football playoff. So I have the Iowa State Cyclones in the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game. And that starts tomorrow. That game is going to be played tomorrow on the network of ABC. So make sure that you have your local listings wherever you may be at, in whatever market, so that you can watch this game in its entirety. The next game, the next chip game I am going to talk about is the SEC championship game. And I don't understand why everybody has been grumbling over the last week about who is in the SEC championship game. The Georgia Bulldogs and the Texas Longhorns. Now we know, earlier in the season, back in week 7, the Georgia Bulldogs, the reason why the Georgia Bulldogs won versus the Texas Longhorns in week 7 was because the Georgia Bulldogs' average starting field position was the Texas Longhorns' 45-yard line. You want to know what the Texas Longhorns' average field position was? Their average field position was their own 21-yard line. And plus, when it comes to that Georgia defense, the Georgia defense was pretty much trying to find their stride at the end of that game, because Georgia Bulldogs, they had gotten eviscerated by the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we already know how the Georgia Bulldogs will fare versus the Texas Longhorns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give y'all just complete straight up statistics. So Carson Beck, he's thrown for over 3,000 yards all season. One thing I can say about Carson Beck, he's just a decent to average quarterback. Now, will he be able to go up on the next level and will a team to the playoffs in his first or second year? I don't think so. But as of right now, the Georgia Bulldogs leading rusher is Nate Frazier. Then here's their wide receivers. Well, excuse me. Their top wide receiver is Adrian Smith. Their leader in tackles is Malachi Starks, and their leader in interceptions for the Georgia Bulldogs is Dan Jackson. He is a DB. So now we look at the rushing attack for the Georgia Bulldogs. I think if the rushing attack for the Georgia Bulldogs does not have a good day with the Texas Longhorns, I think that the Georgia Bulldogs will have a tough time trying to generate yards and points consistently throughout this game, because the Georgia rushing attack has been very average to below average this season. And you can see where they only have over 1,500 yards in the running game throughout the entirety of this season. Now, as far as wide receiver core for the Georgia Bulldogs, here are their wide receivers. All of them have had an average of 65 yards in a game this season. They've had that. So we know that Georgia, they like to throw the ball. They don't like to run the ball. So when it comes to the Texas Longhorns, when it comes to their kicker, when it comes to the Georgia Bulldogs kicker, he's one of the most efficient place kickers and kickers in college football. Here is the almighty Georgia Bulldogs defense. But the Georgia Bulldogs defense has been slipping of late. Come on, Georgia fans, stay with me now. I know that 3 of the last 4 years, you've been in the championship contender talk. In 21 and in 22, you won those 2 paper championships against subpar competition. But now you are playing against a top-notch team in Texas that has really completely reevaluated their offensive line, their quarterback, their defense. Texas has reevaluated everything since that Georgia Bulldog loss. So the Georgia Bulldog defense, they are going to have their hands full with the Texas Longhorns offense. So now, as far as the Georgia Bulldogs defense, they have 721 solo tackles throughout this season. Now let's shift over to the Georgia Bulldogs offense. The Georgia Bulldogs offense is pretty much decent to average at best. Now, don't let these points fool you. 37 points per game. There was a game this season where the Georgia Bulldogs only had 10 points, and that was against Ole Miss. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs have been fortunate to win games this season against a subpar average team like Florida. Florida had them on the ropes late in the fourth quarter. But Florida, they turned the ball over and they was able to pull away. So now I am going to focus on the game at hand. Let's go back. Let everybody just rewind your mind back to the week 7 game, Georgia and the Texas Longhorns. Now, everybody leading up to that game, everybody was picking Texas. Me, I was picking Texas too, because Carson Beck, he wasn't having the type of season up to that point, and he still hasn't had the type of season that Georgia fans envision. Plus, the Georgia Bulldogs defense has been underperforming like they did last season. And for the last couple of years, I've been saying that I don't have confidence in the Georgia Bulldogs secondary. Now, their secondary will be tested in Atlanta come tomorrow. Their secondary is going to be tested. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs offense is decent at best. Look at I'm just give y'all these stats on the offensive side. Third down offensive efficiency, 41%, which is one of the worst in college football. Fourth down offensive efficiency, 72%, which is one of the best in college football. So the offense has had no consistency. That really the Georgia Bulldogs offense hasn't had consistency since, I'm going to say, about week 5 or week 6. Ever since the Georgia Bulldogs have played the Texas Longhorns early in the season, their offense has been sputtering. And I don't know if the Georgia Bulldogs can afford to get down 7 or 10 points against this type of Texas Longhorn team. I am gonna tell y'all, since the Texas Longhorns lost to the Georgia Bulldogs, there have been 5 instances where the Texas Longhorns defense has stepped up to the occasion in fourth down goal to go situations. There was 3 fourth down goal to go situations against Texas A&M Aggies last weekend. So so as far as the Texas Longhorns, I think that they will be able to fare well against the Georgia Bulldogs this time around. I just think that the first game that the Texas Longhorns played against the Georgia Bulldogs, that was a fill-out game. Now I am going to give y'all the Texas Longhorns statistics, which we know the Texas Longhorns are led by Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. Sometimes he has come into the fold, and then here is their rushing game, their rushing attack, the Texas Longhorn rushing attack. Here is the wide receiver core for the Texas Longhorns, wide receivers, tight ends, and here is their kicker. Now, their kicker is one of the most efficient kickers in all of college football. Also, here is the Texas Longhorns defense. Now, like I was saying a few minutes ago, the Texas Longhorns defense have improved since giving up those 30 points to the Georgia Bulldogs. Last week, they gave up just 7 points. Now, the Texas Longhorn offense really didn't light up the scoreboard last week versus the Aggies like we thought, but Carson Beck, this is going to be a game where he is going to have to throw the Georgia Bulldogs to victory. He is. Because one thing that I see is when the Georgia Bulldogs running game is not on schedule, Carson Beck, he doesn't know what to do. He just starts throwing interceptions here and there, and it's like most of that pressure, he gets antsy in the pocket, and he likes to get out of the pocket. But what I think the Texas Longhorns are going to do, they are going to neutralize their top 2 wide receivers. So the Georgia Bulldogs' top 2 wide receivers will be neutralized. The running back for the Georgia Bulldogs will be neutralized. So it's on those tight ends to get the Georgia Bulldogs down the field. It really is. So when it comes to the Texas Longhorns offense has averaged 36 points per game. The third down efficiency with the Texas Longhorns is 43%, which is the same as the Georgia Bulldogs. Fourth down efficiency is 54% for the Texas Longhorns. So now, this game, the game of all games when it comes to college football tomorrow, the SEC championship game. Georgia Bulldogs, Texas Longhorns. Who do I have winning this game? I'm pretty sure everybody is asking me now. I have the Texas Longhorns winning this game because I think that Texas, the offensive line, and I'm strictly talking about the offensive line right now. The Texas offensive line is better equipped to handle the Georgia Bulldogs defense because that week 7 game, they were pretty much a high flying, passing the ball 75% of the time offense. Now, Texas Longhorns, they are pretty much a running team now. And credit to Steve Sarkisian. He is an offensive mastermind, and he is going to need all of that offensive prowess and schematically on the offensive side of the ball for the Texas Longhorns, I think that they will have a wonderful day. That's why I have the Texas Longhorns winning this game. I'm gonna say by a field. I'm gonna say by a touchdown because I think that this game is going to be tight throughout. It is. It's going to be tight throughout, but I think that the Georgia Bulldogs, Carson Beck, he is going to throw at least one interception, and the Texas Longhorns will win the game off of the Georgia Bulldog turnovers. Now, I'm not saying that the Georgia Bulldogs are just going to turn the ball over on every possession, but in a game like this, one or two turnovers created by the opposition will win this game. So I got the Texas Longhorns, and we all know what the Texas Longhorns rallying cry is: hook them. So the Texas Longhorns are going to hook the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC championship game tomorrow. And that SEC championship game, will be broadcast on ABC at 4 o'clock. The next game I am going to cover is the Big Ten championship game. Now, the Big Ten championship game, State Nittany Lions and the Oregon Ducks. I'm gonna just go ahead and tell y'all I got the Oregon Ducks winning this game. So now I'm going to show y'all some statistics from both sides of the ball with the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Oregon Ducks. Now, the Penn State Nittany Lions are led by Drew Aller. Their top running back is Nicholas Singleton. Their top tight end and in receiving yards is Tyler Warren. Their leader in tackles, Jalen Reed with 75, and their top guy in interceptions, Jalen Reed with 3 interceptions. One thing I can say about the Penn State Nittany Lions, James Franklin. Does anybody know his record when it comes to big games against top 25 competition? And I'm not even going to state that this is his first championship game. So he is 3-25 against top-notch competition. That's teams being in the top 25 or teams that are better equipped to beat him. Now, there have been teams where they've been on the same level as the Penn State Nittany Lions, where the Penn State Nittany Lions were projected to win, but somehow they lost against the Oregon Ducks. The Oregon Ducks, their offense has averaged over 30 points per game. The Penn State Nittany Lions, their offense has averaged over 30 points per game also. Here is the Nittany Lions rushing attack. Here's the Nittany Lions wide receivers. Here is their 2-kicker system. Here is the Nittany Lions defense as a whole. And as far as solo tackles, they have 707 solo tackles. So now, when it comes to their offense, the Penn State Nittany Lions offense has averaged 33 points per game. Third down efficiency, 47%, which is below the college football average. Fourth down efficiency, 73%, which is one of the best in college football. When it comes to the Penn State Nittany Lions, I know that the Penn State Nittany Lions are going to make this game close. But when it comes to the Oregon Ducks, now the Oregon Ducks are the top team in the country, led by Dylan Gabriel. Their top running back is Jordan James. Top wide receiver is Tez Johnson. Leader in tackles, Bryce Butchler. And their top guy in interceptions is Tysheem Johnson. So the Oregon Ducks, we know what they are. We know who they are led by. We know that they have a top-notch offense when it comes to rushing, and they have a top-notch offense when it comes to wide receiving. Their kicker, they have a three kicker. They have a three kicker system. Oregon has been dealing with injuries at kicker. That's why they have so many kickers on their statistic dashboard right now. When it comes to their defense is, it hasn't played great, but the Oregon Ducks, they are always leading in games when it comes to the fourth quarter. Now, their defense, solo tackles, 705 solo tackles. Now, we look at their offense. Oregon has the better offense than the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, this is going to be a tight game, but what is going to separate the Oregon Ducks winning this game is the defense. Now, how good is that defense going to play? Now, I can tell you, the Oregon Ducks defense, they have not given up over 40 points all season. They've only given up 30 points once, and that was against the Ohio State Buckeyes earlier on in the season. I have the Oregon Ducks winning this game by a field goal because I just think that the Oregon Ducks, they are locked into the college football playoff no matter what. So this is the Oregon Ducks are playing with house money. Oregon, they can come out there, keep it a close game, lose in the end, and they'll still be the number one team. So I have the Oregon Ducks winning this game, and this game is going to be played at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. 8 o'clock tomorrow night on CBS. It is the Big Ten championship game. Now, the last championship game I am going to cover before I get out of here is the ACC championship game, which is with the Clemson Tigers and the SMU Mustangs. Now, one thing about the Clemson Tigers, boy, they got really lucky getting into the ACC championship game, because I thought when they lost to the South Carolina Gamecocks last weekend, I thought that was it for them. But Miami, they pretty much laid an egg at Syracuse. Miami was up 21-0 at one point and then somehow lost the game. So now, the Clemson Tigers offense, Clemson Tigers team, we know they are led by Cade Klubnik. I thought Cade Klubnik, after week one, he was going to have a tough season. But week one, they played against the Georgia Bulldogs. So everybody always overreact to week one of any season. No matter what sports league anybody is covering, they always overreact to week one. So the top running back for the Clemson Tigers is Phil Maffa. Top wide receiver is Antonio Williams. The top player in tackles for the Clemson Tigers is Barrett Carter. The top guy in interceptions for the Clemson Tigers is Khalil Barnes. So the Clemson Tigers have a 3-quarterback system: Caleb Klubnik, Christopher Benzina, Trent Pierman. And here is the Clemson Tigers rushing attack, Clemson Tigers wide receivers, and the Clemson Tigers 2-kicker system and the Clemson Tigers defense. So the Clemson Tigers defense solo, as far as solo tackles, have had 744 solo tackles as a defensive lineup. When it comes to the Clemson Tigers offense, they've averaged 5 touchdowns throughout the season, points per game, 35 points. Third down efficiency is 45%. Fourth down efficiency is 61%. Now, we know what the Clemson Tigers have done on the offense, having early season struggles, and they have late season success. They've had late season success. Now they are in the ACC championship game. Now, let's shift over to the Mustangs. Now, the SMU Mustangs, what they have a juggernaut at offense. On the offensive line, when it comes to their quarterback is led by Kevin Jennings. Their top running back is led by Brashard Smith. Their top leader in receiving yards for the Mustangs is Roderick Daniels Jr. Top leader in tackles, Kobe Wilson. Top leader in interceptions, Jonathan McGill. Now, when it comes to the SMU Mustangs, earlier this season, mainly week 1, I covered their game between it was a group of 5 schools, so I knew that they was going to win this game. But I said to myself, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if this team made it to the championship game, and look at them. They made it to the ACC championship game. So now we see the rushing attack for the SMU Mustangs. We see the wide receiver core for the SMU Mustangs. We see the 2 kicker system for the SMU Mustangs. We see the defensive lineup for the SMU Mustangs. SMU as a defensive lineup, solo tackles, they have 857 solo tackles as a team. Now, offensively, SMU, they've averaged 39 points per game throughout the season. Third down efficiency, 46%. Fourth down efficiency, 52%. So this is the type of game that Clemson likes. This is the type of game that Clemson likes. So when it comes to SMU has the better offense. Clemson has the better defense. I can tell you that. Clemson has the better defense. SMU has the better offense. It's just, when I was looking at this game, when it was starting out, the Clemson Tigers were a 4-point underdog. Now it has decreased to 2. So Las Vegas is expecting a much closer game. And when I look at it, I'm expecting a closer game no matter what. So when it comes to this game, Clemson, we know what they have been about throughout the season. We know what the SMU Mustangs have been about throughout the entirety of this season. I think coming into this game, I think that the whole SMU Mustangs team will pull up in a bunch of Mustangs, or they might have the team bus as a Mustang, and that's how they'll pull up to this championship game. So either way, I see SMU winning this game, because I have trepidation when it comes to the Clemson Tigers offense. Last week, they only scored 14 points. The week before that, they only scored 20 points. The week before that, they only scored 23 points. And as far as consistently on the offensive side, Clemson has been up and down. The Mustangs have been consistent, and that is why I'm taking the Mustangs in the ACC championship game tomorrow night, will be on which will be on ABC, and it will be broadcast. Since this is the closing of the show, I will tell you all where these games, what state, what stadium they will be in, and who is broadcasting them. Now, the first game that I talked about earlier in the show, UNLV and Boise State, the Mount West Championship, that will be played in that will be played in Boise State at Albertson Stadium. The Boise State Broncos are a 4.5 point favorite, and it will be broadcast on Fox at 8 p.m. After the game, I will give you all my instant reaction from the Mount West Championship game. The next game, also tonight, 8 o'clock, ABC, Tulane Green Wave and the Army Black Knights will play the American Athletic Championship. Currently, right now, Tulane Green Wave is favored by 5 points according to ESPN Bet. I will give you my instant reaction after that game is finalized. And as far as tomorrow, there is four championship games that will be broadcast. The first one is at noon. Iowa State Cyclones, the Arizona State Sun Devils play for the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game. And that will be broadcast on ABC. So the next game, the SEC championship game between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Texas Longhorns. But this game is going to be played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Excuse me. For the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship game, that will be played in Arlington, Texas, in AT&T Stadium. For the SEC championship game, that will be played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. That game kicks off at 4 o'clock on ABC, but mainly it's really 4:05, 5:10, because the announcers that are announcing the game, they have to give their 2 cents before kickoff. The last two games will be the first one, the Big Ten championship game between Penn State, Nittany Lions, and the Oregon Ducks will be broadcast on CBS at 8 o'clock. And it is played in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. Right now, the Oregon Ducks are favored by 3.5 points, according to ESPN Bet. I missed out on something. The SEC championship, the Texas Longhorns are currently favored by 2.5 points, according to ESPN Bet. The last game of championship conference of college football conference championship weekend will be the aforementioned Clemson Tigers and SMU Mustangs. That game will be broadcast on ABC, and it will be played at 8 o'clock in Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. Currently, the SMU Mustangs are favored by 2 points. So, I have given you all of the TV listings, time, location. So, everybody, tomorrow, if you are a college football fan like myself and all the other college football fans out there, sit back, relax, and enjoy some college football. And with that, those are my predictions and outlook for every conference championship game in college football this weekend. So please like, comment, share, subscribe. Click that notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. Also, follow Key City Sports on TikTok. And remember, one last thing, the key is always on time.